Gautam Adani recently became the richest man in Asia.
Gautam Adani has replaced Mukesh Ambani to become the richest Indian. Adani Group's founder Gautam Adani has topped the list for this year, leaving behind Mukesh Ambani, the chairman and managing director of Reliance Industries Limited.
While he keeps changing this position with Mukesh Ambani, the two are very different. Mukesh Ambani was the son of the richest man in India, while Gautam Adani was the son of a middle-class textile shop owner in Gujarat. He came from nothing, but within his lifetime, he has managed to amass over $110 billion in wealth. Today, the Adani Group has ownership in not one, not two, but 10 companies listed on the stock exchange. The total market cap of all these companies is $240 billion. The net profit of the Adani Group last year was over 30,000 crore rupees. That is 82 crore rupees every single day. Now, people often compare Gautam Adani with Mukesh Ambani, but that is wrong. What he has managed to do puts him in the same league as the OG Dhirubhai Ambani, and the similarities are baffling. Both of them started from nothing. Both of them became the richest men in India within their lifetimes, and both of them were involved in serious political controversies. But what is the true story of Gautam Adani? How did a man come from nothing and turn into the richest person in Asia? Are all these political controversies and allegations true or false? The answer to all these questions lies in the journey of Adani, which starts in Gujarat. In 1977, Adani dropped out in the second year from Gujarat University. He went to Mumbai and entered the diamond trade, taking an ordinary job as a diamond sorter at Mahindra Brothers. But the diamond industry was not where he was destined to make his fortune, because in 1981 he received a call from his brother Dhirubhai Ambani. Dhirubhai had set up a PVC film manufacturing plant back in Ahmedabad, and he asked his brother for help. And this was the most significant moment in Adani's life, because it was at this point that he was introduced to a business that would change his life forever. Gautam Adani went back to Ahmedabad to help his brother, who was facing a unique challenge in his PVC business. His brother's factory required 20 tons of PVC every single month to meet the demand. But at that time, there was just one producer of PVC in India, and that producer was only able to supply 2 tons a month to the Adanis. The only other alternative was to import the PVC granules from abroad. But this was the early 1980s. Import-export used to be heavily regulated by the government. Now, Gautam Adani himself says that there were two big turning points in his life, and the first one came in 1985. The government had realized that a closed economy was not doing any favors to India's growth, so they slowly started opening up the economy. And as a step in that direction, in 1985, the government removed the restrictions and regulations on the import and export of goods. As soon as the restrictions were removed, Gautam Adani started importing plastic granules to meet the demand of their factory. But he soon realized that his brother's business was not alone. All industries across Gujarat were facing a shortage of PVC and plastic granules. So he started importing plastic granules and selling them to manufacturers all across Gujarat. Now at this point you might say, what is the big deal? Any ordinary businessman can set up an import-export business, right? But Gautam Adani was not an ordinary businessman. His sharp eye led him to a loophole in a government organization. A loophole that would eventually help him rule the import-export trade of India. He found that there was a government entity named Gujarat State Export Corporation, or GSEC. GSEC used to export Indian goods abroad. Now, the 1980s was a time when India used to be extremely low on foreign exchange reserves. So in order to boost exports and help bring foreign currency to India, the government used to provide GSEC with import duty exemptions. But Gautam Adani found out that, like a typical government organization, GSEC was not using any of these import exemption credits, and they were being wasted. So Adani saw the opportunity here and struck a deal. He told GSEC that he would help them import raw materials and utilize the import duty discounts. But after the raw materials are imported, GSEC could keep what it needs, while Adani would sell the rest in the open market for profits. And just like that, while his competitors were paying full duties and tariffs, Adani was importing raw materials virtually duty-free. And he capitalized on this and grew very rapidly. From 1998 to 1992, in a span of just 4 years, his imports went from 100 metric tons to over 40,000 metric tons. That is a growth of almost 40,000%. And then he expanded beyond plastic granules. He started importing and exporting chemicals and petroleum products as well. So by this time, he had already established himself as one of the most prominent traders of Gujarat. But Adani's ascent was far from over yet, because what came next was something even Adani himself did not expect. In 1991, the government announced that it was opening up the entire economy. Finance Minister Manmohan Singh announced the landmark liberalization reforms, which allowed easy entry of private and foreign players into fields that were regulated by the government until then. This orchestrated the arrival of international players to India, and one of them was Cargill, an American company that wanted to produce salt in India and then export it. But Cargill needed an Indian partner experienced in import-export, so they ended up partnering with Adani. While Adani happily agreed to work with Cargill, he was unaware that this partnership would give birth to the ultimate money machine for the Adani Group, powering everything that he was going to build in the future. You see, this salt production partnership between Adani and Cargill had one roadblock. Operating a salt production export facility of this size would need thousands of acres of land right next to the sea. But Adani was no ordinary businessman. By the 1990s, he had already built connections with politicians in the Gujarat government. And in 1994, he used this political influence and approached the CM of Gujarat, Chimanbhai Patel. After this, he was awarded 3,000 acres of land near Mundra in the Kutch district of Gujarat. Now at this point, Adani used to conduct his import-export operations using two government-owned ports, the Mumbai port and the Kandla port. But both these ports were slow and resulted in delays, due to which Adani was losing almost 10 crore rupees every single year. And in Adani's own words, after getting into import-export in 1985, finding the solution to this problem was the second turning point in his life. You see, the reason for the success of these mega businessmen, whether it is Dhirubhai or Mukesh Ambani or Gautam Adani, is that they always think big. At a time when all ports in India were owned by the government, an ordinary businessman might have conceded defeat. He might have accepted that these delays and losses were just a part of that business. But Adani thought big. He thought outside the box, and he decided to build the first ever private port in India. In 1995, Gautam Adani tapped into his political connections yet again. The Mundra port was completely privatized and awarded to Adani. And that really was the second and most important turning point in Adani's life. The Mundra port changed the fortunes of Gautam Adani forever. He shifted all of his operations to Mundra port and immediately streamlined the process to avoid delays and save money. But then he started an expansion spree. In 1998, he expanded into the trading of coal as well, which would later become one of the core segments of the Adani Group. And he didn't stop at trading. In 2003, he ventured into infrastructure and construction by leveraging the Mundra port. He set up a special economic zone or SEZ around the Mundra port, where companies could buy space from Adani to set up their factories and then use the Mundra port for their import-export operations, for which they again paid Adani. But recall what I said, Adani always thinks big. He noticed that most of the coal was coming from coal mines and going to thermal power generation plants. So he decided to own those parts of the supply chain as well. In 2006, he set up a new company, Adani Power Limited, and ventured into thermal power generation. Then in 2010, he acquired the Carmichael coal mine in Australia and later developed a railway network there, along with acquiring other international and domestic coal mines as well. And just like that, Gautam Adani attained end-to-end integration and ownership of the complete supply chain. He owned the coal mines where the coal was being produced. He owned the railway line using which the coal was transported to the ports. He owned the ports which were used for loading and unloading the coal. And then he owned the thermal power plants which use that coal to generate electricity. Not only did this generate a lot of revenue for the Adani Group, but it also meant that Adani's companies got extremely cheap raw materials. Adani Power itself is the biggest buyer of coal from Adani Enterprises. And with a similar strategy of expansion and complete domination, Adani has gone on to establish himself in several other sectors over the years, including Adani Renewables, the largest solar developer in the world, Adani Transmission, the largest private sector power distribution company, Adani Ports, the largest private port operator, Adani Power, the biggest private sector thermal power producer, Adani Gas, the largest city gas distributor, and Adani Wilmar, the biggest edible oil brand, which you might know as Fortune Oil. He also acquired ACC and Ambuja Cement to create Adani Cement, the second largest cement manufacturer in India. And as expected, the Adani Group itself is the biggest customer of Adani Cement. Adani Ports is the largest private port operator in India, accounting for 24% of India's total port capacity alone. He is still continuing his expansion in line with the ambitions of the Indian government, entering sectors like defense manufacturing and data centers. But wait a minute. How did Gautam Adani get the money to start all of these ventures in such a short period of time? Well, this is where the dark side of Adani's business strategies come in. And this is also what makes Mukesh Ambani's way of doing business fundamentally different than Gautam Adani. You see, Reliance has largely relied on equity to raise funds for expansion. For example, for the money Ambani needed to expand Jio, he brought in investors like Google, which invested $4.5 billion for a 7.7% stake in Jio, and Facebook, which invested $5.7 billion for a 10% stake. But Gautam Adani has used an extremely clever web of debt that will blow your mind away. Let's try to understand this with a simple example. Let's say that tomorrow, Adani decides to venture into steel. Remember that right now, he hasn't actually started making or selling steel yet. He is just saying he will do it in the future, he has all the plans, and he is taking the company public. Now the public trusts the Adani brand, so when the IPO comes, they will buy Adani's shares at an extremely high, overvalued price. Let's say that Adani sells 40% shares of Adani Steel in the IPO and keeps the remaining 60% to himself. And let's say the market cap of this newly listed company becomes 10,000 crores. So after the IPO, Adani will now go to the bank and say, I am pledging 20% shares of Adani Steel, whose market value right now is 2000 crores. So use this as a guarantee and give me a loan of 500 crores, to which the banks will agree. He will then use these 500 crores and the money raised from the public to build Adani Steel or other Adani companies. So he is literally creating money out of thin air using debt. This is an extremely simplified example, but this is roughly how Gautam Adani has used debt to build his gigantic empire. Now you might ask, if people know that he is artificially inflating the value of his companies, why do they buy his shares? Well, this is where the controversial side of Adani's business is fully revealed. There have been several accusations against Adani for manipulating his stock prices, the most prominent of which was the infamous Hindenburg report. The report alleged that Gautam Adani was using shell companies to increase the prices of its stocks. And here is how it worked. These fake shell companies were located outside India and indirectly owned by Gautam Adani and his family members. These companies used to buy stocks of Adani's companies, which increased the prices of their shares. This led the general public to believe that the shares were in demand, which drove the share prices even higher. Adani then used to leverage the inflated market value of these shares to get loans from the banks. While Adani strongly denied these allegations, it still had a devastating effect. In less than 10 days after the report was released, Adani's net worth fell by 60%. From $120 billion to below $50 billion. The market cap of his companies fell from $217 billion to just $99 billion, as people were selling off their stocks out of fear. However, this turned out to be a temporary setback. Adani was able to sail through this storm and still come back stronger than ever. But does that mean that the underlying allegations were completely untrue? If you look at the stock prices of his companies, they are still severely inflated. The profit to equity or PE ratio of a company indicates the share price of a company with respect to the profit it is generating. The higher the PE, the more overvalued a company's share price is. Adani Green has a PE of 253, while Tata Power, which also works in green energy, is at 37.8. Adani Gas is trading at a PE of 148, while its peer Indraprastha Gas is at a PE of 19. Adani stocks always trade at astronomically high valuations for some unexplained reason. So allegedly, what he basically does is, he launches a new company. He raises money from the public saying that this company will be the next market leader even though he has no money for it. People buy into his promises and give him money. He shows that to the banks and gets even more money. He then invests all that borrowed money into this new company. And his monopolization strategy is so good that he actually succeeds in making that company successful and worth the inflated price in the future. And the most interesting part is that, at least on paper, none of it is illegal. That is simply how the share market works. It is no different than what startups like Zomato and Paytm are doing today with VC money. But the controversies with Gautam Adani do not end here, because it is alleged that a significant portion of Adani's wealth has been achieved due to political backing. The allegations go right to the beginning of his business career. I already mentioned that he used his connections with then Congress CM Chimanbhai Patel to get the 3,000 acres of land. But the surprising thing was that this land was allotted to him at just 10 paisa per square meter. And allegedly, the Adani Group has continued receiving more land over the years at prices much cheaper than others. Then, the CAG reported in 2012 that the Gujarat State Petroleum Corporation or GSPC had purchased natural gas from the market and then sold it to Adani Energy at a price lower than the market price, which resulted in Adani Energy making a profit of 70 crores at the expense of the government. Then in 2016, Adani Group launched the controversial power project in Godda, Jharkhand. It was alleged that Adani acquired land in Godda for prices below market rates, and the state government also provided fast-track approvals and tweaked its policies, allowing Adani to sell power at a higher price. Adani also managed to acquire the management of 8 airports and become India's largest airport infrastructure company in barely 1 year. It manages top airports like Mumbai and Ahmedabad, accounting for over 25% of passenger footfalls. But even this contract was controversial, where the government reportedly tweaked the existing policy requirements. Earlier, only companies with prior experience in managing airports could have applied. But after the tweak, even a company with zero experience in managing airports could apply for the contracts. Now, it is important to note here that all of this necessarily may not be wrong. It is the job of governments to support companies by providing incentives and relaxations, because the growth of a company leads to the growth of the overall economy of the country. Reliance Industries, for example, account for more than 9% of India's GDP. But where do you draw the line between the welfare of the country and unfair favoritism? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below, and while you're there, please subscribe. I post immensely valuable content on LinkedIn and Instagram, so follow me there. The link is in the description below. Until I see you in the next video, goodbye.